All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper pre-party show. I'm so happy to have you all here, and you all are going to have a good time with us tonight. I am very excited to have my guest with me. I will introduce her in just a minute. We're going to give people just a second to catch those notifications, and anybody who wants to watch ads, we always appreciate that, but please don't feel obligated, especially if it's one of those 20-minute ads that occasionally YouTube likes to throw out at you. I don't expect anybody to have to sit through that unless it's a product you're really interested in. So a couple ground rules before we get started here. I always like to go through this in case we have anybody new to the channel. I ask that you are more than welcome to criticize, disagree with me. You can even, troll me a little bit in comments or in chat. I ask you to always please be kind to my guests and kind to each other in the chat. That is one of my big rules. If we catch you, starting trouble in the chat with each other or just stirring up trouble for somebody else, mods have full permission to put you in timeout or boot you. If you leave a really particularly nasty comment, I might just block you from the channel, so you probably don't want to waste your time with that. That being said, everything else is pretty much welcome and fair game. We're going to take questions, so if you have questions during tonight's chat, please go ahead and throw them in caps. It will just help us to catch it, especially if we start getting a lot of comments at the same time. It's easier for me to scroll back and catch those caps comments. See a lot of people popping in already. I got Stuart's Prepping. Thank you so much. Always turns out here for us. Lee from Cold War Prepping. Sassy Gal Prepping. Good to see you both. Two of my moderators there. And let's see. I think I saw Angie. Thank you so much for popping in as well. And everybody else that's kind of hanging out in the background. Don't be shy. If you want to say hi, say hi. And for my mods tonight, if you could try to remember to throw out, I know you're always great about throwing out channel links and things like that. If anybody wants your channel link promoted, just say so. The mods will take care of you. And if you could do a couple more quick little things for me, I appreciate it. If either of you has Instagram, and you can go on Mother Prepper on Instagram and put her link on there. I can't do that from my laptop because I'm not signed into Instagram from my laptop. And please be sure, mods, to put your links in there as well so people can check you out. I've got several of my moderators also do prepping channels, so I do encourage you to check out Lee and Sassy Gal Prepping, and Bacon may be able to make it tonight. I think he had something going on, so we may or may not see him tonight, but definitely check each other out. And thank you so much for joining us. All right, tonight's guest is Des, otherwise known as AKA Mother Prepper. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Tell us about your content. Where can people find you?
Oh, so I will say, I'm trying to branch out to other platforms. I know YouTube is huge, so I'm learning from all of you. But most of my content currently lives on Instagram. And so I'm trying to kind of get a rhythm for what YouTube is going to be like. So I really enjoy joining you in some of these lives. I know that is a great resource for so many folks. But Instagram is the place to find me currently. I'm working on my website as well. So once that's live, I'm happy to share with all of you, but it'll also encompass a lot of the work I've been doing behind the scenes.
And you're doing really well on Instagram. You're like 50,000 followers, right?
We just hit 50. And I think when I checked today, because we did a giveaway, it was near 55. So it's been a very fun week.
So did that happen like in one big growth spurt, or was it kind of over time trickled in?
Oh, man, I'd have to say, so Instagram's quite weird. And so any of these people that you follow that say like, I've figured it out, I've figured out the algorithm, they're full of crap because it's always changing. So honestly, I have found that when I have the opportunity to create a reel or a post that either entertains or educates, if not hopefully both, it resonates with people in my niche, in my audience. And I'm so grateful for all of you that have shared it because it's really helped reach other people that might find this interesting. And so I feel like the growth with Instagram, it's never like this consistent climb. It's like, oh, it did really well. And then there's a little bit of like normalization and another big jump. And so that's part of like just trying to figure out the algorithm. But seriously, I think it's the same on YouTube where it's just consistency and really like sticking with your niche and your message, and the growth will happen.
Yeah, it's same thing with YouTube. I can release a video and I'll, you know how long it takes to put together content. So I could spend an entire weekend putting together a 10-minute video and think, man, this is my best video I've ever done. People are going to love this. and you'll get like 100 views, and it's like,
oh,
so
I know.
deflating.
And then I look and my mom is like one of them. I'm like, Mom, thanks for the like. But I mean, we work really hard on the content. I know I really enjoy your content and what you put together. And I know it comes from a place of wanting to just help, and we're really passionate about it. And so as long as that is still truly like what drives you, then the growth will come, because the content is amazing. It speaks for itself.
I appreciate it.
I love learning from you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I went through a big debate at the start of 2023 where I was just like, I don't know if I want to continue doing the gardening. I don't want to, like, not for me, but for the channel. Like, I'm always going to garden for myself, because I'll do a gardening video and people say they like it, but they'll get very, very low views. And it's very hard to make that content. You know, you do some of that with your, like, that's a lot of different angles and a lot of cutting together. And shooting outside is like a whole nother animal, because the camera overheats a lot. And
it's windy.
Yeah.
Just the most. I live in suburbia land, and so I'm like, was that a helicopter? Was that audio on like the footage? Geez, and then like, you just never know. There's so many factors, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yes, but anyways, I came back to like, okay, people say they like it, so if I only get 100 views, I get 100 views, but at least those 100 people wanted to see that, and that's where it should come from,
100%.
Thank you, Fish. See, you popped in there. Burpee Yoga Uncle. I saw Steve from Corsairs Trainers. God is great. Good to see you, brother. Anybody else who popped in, thank you so much. Really appreciate everybody. All right, so let's get into some of the content that you've done here on Instagram. I want to talk about self-defense, because that was my whole, when I reached out to you, I thought, Des is just doing this amazing job of normalizing that it's good to train, that it's a healthy thing to train, that it's firearms don't have to be this scary thing. Martial arts doesn't have to be this scary thing, right? Like that you have a right to protect yourself, number one, mm-hmm. and you have an obligation to protect your kids, right?
Well, yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the pistol training first. So I did... years ago, I did the International Defensive Pistol Association. And what you're doing looks similar to that? Or is it part of one of those type of organizations?
It's not necessarily. I know the curriculum is very in line with that expectation. I've been pretty blessed to find a firearms coach that I trust, that can help me find areas of weakness when it comes to my draw, my just my situational awareness. Understanding how I can stay calm under duress, because if you ever have to defend yourself, there's not going to be any calm peace about it. So it's very much a combination of your emotional response, your physical response, and your ability to stay calm during those situations and think through it. And so I'm super passionate about it, especially for the ladies. And so, and it's not necessarily something that's geared just to women, but it is your fundamental right to be able to protect yourself and the people you love by any means necessary. Now, if you are passionate about firearms, or if you're not comfortable with it, totally fine. The point is pick something, right? Your body can be a tool. There are other non-lethal tools if that's what you're more comfortable with. But the most vulnerable place to be is when you just assume it'll never happen to you, or you'll know exactly how to respond. And so I think a lot of people are going to get in this false sense of security where they say, well, that doesn't happen where I am, or I'll just
dial 911.
Yeah, right. I'll just dial 911, or I will run in the opposite direction. Listen, have you ever clocked how fast it is for somebody to run at you if they really want to get in your personal space? It's so quick. And so I'm super passionate about it. I train in jiu-jitsu. I just started this year. And so if you're on here viewing and you've been considering some type of close proximity combat training, whether it's martial arts, jiu-jitsu, grappling, there's options, and you feel that you are too old, or your body's not right, or it's just not ideal for your situation, I'm here to tell you, just do it, because you will be so surprised at what your body is capable of. It helps me feel strong, not just try to use the muscles that I rarely use, because I have a day job that requires me to be at a desk all the time. But it keeps me active, and it helps me just keep my body physically fit. So the choice for me was jujitsu because grappling and being on the ground is a whole different element. For women specifically, I found it to be incredibly helpful because in all the instances that I've either firsthand account from people or viewing it on the media where a woman is attacked, they're pushed to the ground. Well, guess what? That's where jujitsu really thrives. And it's based on technique to immobilize your opponent, not necessarily to strike or to stun. It's really technique based, and it's so helpful against opponents that are bigger, stronger, and faster than you. So I clearly am a part of this jujitsu cult. I'm only a white belt and I'm so into it. But that's just one facet of it, right? And so I know you had led with the firearms training. I will be the first to tell you, I lived many years of my life not being comfortable with a firearm around me in my home. And it is the ultimate equalizer for me. And so if there is ever a scenario where I would need to completely level the playing field as far as a threat, firearms is what I'm going to reach for. And I found that a lot of my fear was driven because I did not understand it as a tool. Right. And I did not understand, the incredible responsibility that comes with being a firearms owner, and the fact that you will continually need to train and you'll continually need to prep and be, educated in this field. And so I probably train pretty hard once a month. I will say it's an expensive sport, so be prepared. Be ready.
When I was doing IDPA, and this was when ammo was a lot cheaper, I was putting out like $300 a month in ammo just between training and the matches. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you said it. And it's so difficult also, especially for ladies, I feel like, to find a trainer or a range where you feel comfortable, right? It's always weird being the new girl or being the new person where you go in and you're just like, I don't know where to start. I feel so embarrassed. But every time I've been able to work with my firearms training up here in Northern California, it's never felt like that. It's so empowering. So, but I could talk obviously hours about this.
Well, I see your questions about martial arts, guys. I promise I will get back to those in a second. I just want to kind of work through the firearm stuff first. And then, by the way, if you ever go to Southern California, Corsair Trainers is a firearm instructor down there.
Love it. I have people who ask, so I need to reach out and we can make contact. I can recommend that.
Yeah. So when I was doing the IDPA, there were certain things that, you were talked about, like things are not going to happen. If things go bad, it's not going to happen the way it does in an indoor range where the person's a stationary target 21 yards away, right? So if y'all are on Instagram, really please check out Dez's content. It's Mother Prepper on Instagram, and I know people have been dropping the links in chat. So if you're watching this on replay, you can catch it that way, or just go search for Mother Prepper on Instagram. You got to see her training. She's like John Wick.
No.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, that is too kind. I can only dream one day.
But you have to do things like, what if your dominant hand becomes unusable, right? So then you have to switch to your offhand. Can you do a magazine change with one hand? Can you, how do you clear a malfunction, right? All that stuff's part of what I see you doing on there. And you do low light training, which is awesome.
Oh my God. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is such a game changer, because the likelihood of an event where you would have to draw your weapon to defend yourself is likely to be in the dark or a very low lit situation. That's just straight statistics of what we've seen. And can you rely on your ability to know where your target is, to know not to hesitate, if you are sure in your aim and your draw? There's so many elements that, listen, Sarge, I thought I knew how to shoot. And then we did low light and I was like, it's a whole different thing. So all of that, yes, it's so different.
So do you want to give a shout out to your instructor? Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah. So my instructor is Martin, and he's up here in Northern California. It's AIM Firearms Training. It's AIM Firearms Training. I tag him a bunch just because I either live at my jiu-jitsu studio or at the range. And so that's just where a bulk of my free time has been, because training it's so important, because situation of duress, you're going to fall back on what is habit for you. And if you don't train to make these things a habit, what are you doing? So, but I appreciate that time to give them a shout out. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I see the work that you're doing, and it speaks for itself. So, what's your carry weapon?
So I started with a Glock 26, and before you ask me any questions in the comments, yes, I'm in California. All right, let me just say it's difficult to get my hands on the things I'd like to carry. So I started with a Glock 26 simply because it was smaller profile, easier to conceal. I don't have a lot of like real estate to hide everything. So I started with a Glock 26. Fine. You know, the other reason I started there is because I wanted the ability to have to use magazines from Glock 19, which was my other weapon of choice to carry up here. Mm-hmm. And the ability to use the same magazine within those two firearms was like, this is a perfect prepper readiness situation. I can literally in the dark grab any mag and we're good to go. So that was kind of a determining factor too. I later added my own Glock 19 as my everyday carry, and I prefer my 19 to my 26. And I'll tell you, the 26 is a snappy little thing. Let me just say, the smaller you go in the subcompact, at least in my experience, and I have pretty average size hands. It's not too small. It's not too large. It's snappy. That's just how it is. It's going to take additional training to really feel comfortable with it. Your recoil management, target acquisition. The 19, though, that little bit of a different space was wildly different for me. So I prefer to carry my Glock 19. I love that thing. I can still use interchangeable mags, which is great. But those are the two that I carry just depending on where I'm going, my outfits, so that I can conceal and less printing. But those are the two that I have right now that I've been rotating between as far as pistols.
Yep. My carry pistol, I alternate between a Glock 26 and a Taurus 85. And people are probably like, well, that's a small gun for a guy. You know, well, it is, yeah. But I live in South Carolina where our humidity is like crazy. Oh, yeah. I have to wear light clothing. You know, it's very easy to do with a Glock 17, which was the pistol that I when I was competing, which is, yeah, I agree. It's much more accurate. You can get much more distance on it. But if I try to wear a Glock 17 here in the summertime, like the print it's going to look like I'm carrying an AR in my pocket. It's crazy.
Oh my God. I can only,
So I go tough for a small carry pistol. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, like, in the summer, it's the 26. In the fall and winter, it's the 19. And so I'm definitely enjoying like more layered clothing right now.
All right. So we had some martial arts questions. Let's kind of go back to that. The Burpee Yoga Uncle wanted to know, I think you answered one of the questions. You said white belt. How long have you been training?
Yeah. I've only been training for, I want to say like 6 or 7 months. I'm still very new into this journey. Okay. I love it. I wish it was, but no, I'm still very new to this.
6 months, you've got more than most people in the world at this point.
Oh, thanks.
It's true. It's true. So I did not train in, I do recommend that people train in a ground game. If not jujitsu, then wrestling or something. Most fights are going to go to the ground. I have very little training in ground fighting, but I have a black belt in Tracy Kempo and a blue belt in Shaolin Kempo. Awesome. And I took some boxing classes and stuff like that. So most of my fighting is stand-up fighting, which is good. But if I go to the ground, I'm at a serious disadvantage at that point. So I actually tell people, like when people say, well, what should I train in? You should do both, you know, take some ground, take some kind of stand-up martial art, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, karate, whatever, and then definitely take some kind of like grappling, either jiu-jitsu or wrestling or anything else that can be used, because most of your fights are going to end up on the ground.
100%. I love that approach.
Yeah. And so Burpee Yoga Uncle was asking, do you want to give a shout out to your school?
Just for security reasons, I probably won't, just because it kind of gives my location away. But I am always a fan of jiu-jitsu schools that really have like a dedicated women's program too, because it's also so intimidating. And I'm very fortunate that my school does. Even though most of the time I'm rolling with men just because of how my schedule works out. But I've been really blessed to have best of both worlds there.
So what are your thoughts about training with men? And, I know when I started, first of all, my second instructor was a woman, 5th degree black belt. And, when you tell people who you're training with, well, I'm training with so-and-so, and it's, oh, you're training from a woman, right? Because there's still like this disrespect that goes on. It's not okay. And I always would say, oh, okay, come to a couple classes and run your mouth. Let's see how that works out for you. Nobody ever took me up on that.
Even though I roll with mostly men, and that's just unfortunately how it works out with the times that I'm able to go to, to the classes and drill. And I've really grown fond of the group that I continue to drill with just because they're so helpful. But the fact is they're mostly men and they're huge and they're strong. And so it's helpful for me to build that skill set into what to expect. But the ladies, they are most unassuming, like assassins, the ones that I've rolled with. And they have this innate ability to just know where their limbs are a lot quicker than the men, because they're just so nimble and they're so able to like gracefully get in places and get out of situations. And I'm just like, man, when I see women on the mat and they're just really owning their, the movements of their body, and they're just able to see where the fight's going to go 20 steps ahead. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm like fangirling on the sideline because I'm so excited.
Yeah. And when I was training, my natural inclination, because it was drilled into me when I was a kid by my dad, don't ever hit a girl. If you do, you're going to be sorry. Right. And so I was holding back a lot, and the women in the class would be like, do not go soft on me. I need to know how to do this in case I get attacked.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there was many times that I came home with like a footprint on my chest from getting, and it was the women. And I got liver kicked one time in sparring.
Oh man!
By one of the female black belts, and that almost knocked me out. That was one of the hardest hits I ever took. So it's always people who don't train in martial arts who will say, "Oh, women can't fight" or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Come to a class and run your mouth and watch what happens.
Yeah. It's incredible what these women can do, and the power in a kick or a choke. So I'm there with you. Yeah. I don't want to roll with some of the women at my studio just because they are incredibly powerful. And I'm like, maybe next time.
Bacon, thank you for popping in. I really appreciate you. And Steve says he enjoys training with the women. I've used skill instead of just muscling them. Less ego issues.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. So true.
Very, very cool. So if somebody wanted to get started, I'm going to jump back to the firearms now.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to get started, they've always been afraid of the bang bang, right? They've never done it. I wouldn't necessarily tell them to jump in where you're at, right? They got to start a little bit lower on the ladder first to get comfortable, right? So what would you say to them?
I would say find your closest range. I'm a big believer in actually taking the time to read reviews, right? Because some ranges have just this toxic culture and atmosphere, and you can spot it a mile away if you know what you're looking for and just kind of reading through the reviews. You want some place that is able to help educate you and give you the space to learn. Also, if you find resources near you where there are firearms instructors, that's another great place to ask them, where should I start this journey as far as a range to be able to visit and either rent a firearm or visit an indoor range or outdoor range with a trusted individual. So if you have questions, you can ask them. It's nice to just kind of, I don't want to say jump into it, but to ask the questions and start the conversation. What I don't recommend is just going out and buying a firearm that you've never rented and having it just stored in the house and saying, well, I'll get to it. And then, then starting that journey. I can't tell you how many times, I've had people, reach out to me and say, I bought this firearm because it's popular and it's cool. And it's completely something that's going to be difficult for them to hold just based on what they're telling me and the caliber of weapon. So please, if you haven't already asked these questions or rented firearms, please take the time to go through that, because it is such an incredibly helpful exercise, not just to know what are you comfortable with as far as recoil management, because it's going to differ depending on your weapon of choice, but also your grip. Your grip is fundamental. If I have hugely large hands and I can't get a good grip over a very tiny firearm, it's going to be that much harder for me to master, to defend myself. So please give yourself the opportunity to for success, and just go through that piece and rent a firearm, and also just ask around, because a really great range or firearms instructor wants you to succeed, right? Because this is something we all agree is fundamentally our right to protect ourselves. So ask all the questions. Please don't hesitate.
Yeah, the only thing I think I could add to that would be, you know, the first time you go out, if you want to go with a friend, I totally get that. You're going to feel more comfortable being with somebody you know. If you decide that you're going to train and you're going to pick up buy something, at some point definitely take lessons with a professional instructor. Don't get all of your instruction from friends, because you might pick up their bad habits. And when it comes to bullets, you know, the slightest little mistake can be the difference between a hit and a non-hit, right? So, you know, you talked about close quarters stuff. If somebody gets into your house, you're probably talking 21 feet or less. You're getting maybe one shot before they're on you, you know? So you don't want to miss. So get some training with somebody, a professional instructor. It's worth the money to do that. They will correct things. They'll, if you picked up bad habits from your friends, they'll say, yeah, where did you learn that? And don't be embarrassed, because we all have little things that we pick up, and then
we all started somewhere. We all started here. So if you feel like you're embarrassed, and I echo that so much, if you feel like you don't want to start because you don't want to stand out, we've all been there. Nobody is born with this ability to pick up a firearm and feel comfortable with their shot. So please. I love that. That is so important, because I definitely inherited bad habits that I later had to break with professional training. So I love that you said that.
And I would say anybody who's really getting into it, like if you're going to do the kind of training that Des is doing, or competitions or anything like that, also invest in so whatever you use. If you use like a Glock 26 or a Glock 17, guaranteed that there's a replica of it in the airsoft world. And so get yourself the airsoft replica. The weight is usually pretty darn close, and all the functions, the magazine release, the safeties, whatever, they're usually right where they would be. So it's almost like an identical to the real thing. So you can practice changing magazines, retention reloads, you know, tap rack assess, all these things you can do in the safety of your house without accidentally putting a hole in the wall.
Oh yeah. That's a great tip.
Yeah. So that was how I did the offhand, learning how to do offhand reloads and all that kind of stuff. Is just went in the backyard with my airsoft and did it over and over and over again until I could do it flawlessly, you know.
You're building up those great habits, and you're able, and then you'll start to really want to break it down even more. Like if you set up a camera to record yourself, because you can't always pick up these slight differences in movement. And so it is very much a journey, just like any of, whether it's jujitsu, preparedness, they're all journeys. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have things that you change with time. That is expected. So please don't assume that once you've taken all the courses available in the firearms, that's offered in your firearms training, you're set, you're a master. No, sorry. You want to continue this training, continue the dry fire, because these are all things that if you back off and you kind of take time away, those skills start to degrade. That habit starts to degrade. And so it's going to require you to jump in and stay in.
Absolutely. Somebody was asking, I'm assuming you were talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. And folks, if you have any other questions about the martial arts or the firearms training or anything like that, just throw them in there. We'll try to catch them as we move on to some other topics here. So, chickens.
Yes, my chickens.
You love your chickens, right?
Oh, I love those tiny little raptors. Yeah, I do.
How many do you have?
I have 5 hens. Okay. I had bought 8 chicks. 3 turned out to be roosters, and where I live in suburbia land, we can't have roosters. And so that was kind of something I knew going into it. So I had to rehome them. Luckily, we found a farm that was nearby that were more than happy to take them because they're a very pretty breed of roosters. But I have 5 hens, and it is unreal how just incorporating chickens into this micro homestead has really kind of made me feel more self-sufficient, because it's not just the eggs, right? It's like, did I learn how to build a coop? Do I learn how to, weatherproof it when the climate outside's terrible? Do I know how to care for them and understand their health? But also, how can I utilize them to eat up kitchen scraps and provide compost? And so it's very much, if you have the opportunity to get chickens, I would highly recommend it. Not just for me. I have a young daughter, and it has really helped her understand where our food comes from, how to get closer to our food source. We're not raising meat chickens, at least at this time, but just understanding like the love and work and care that goes into producing food for our table has been so incredibly valuable, that I didn't anticipate would be a part of this having chickens journey. So I'm a big fan. If you can get the chickens, get the chickens. If you can't, consider quail.
So you debunked one of the big questions that a lot of people ask is, do I need to have a rooster? And you really don't. I know, because I did have 100 chickens at one point when I was in Kentucky.
Wow.
And I could say that when you have a rooster, you will get a little bit more egg production. The hens will be a little bit more fertile, but they will produce eggs regardless. It's just part of their cycle that they're going to lay an egg either every day or every couple days, depending on what kind of breed they are and what time of year it is. Right.
Yeah.
In the winter, they do slow down a little bit, right? And that was what we saw too. And we would supplement them with some stuff. Like I would buy a bag of crickets to give them a little extra protein, or crush up some eggshells for a little bit extra calcium, and that helps. But they're still gonna produce less in the wintertime, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have found that too. Some people will put a light inside their coop to kind of stimulate them artificially that way. We don't, just because chickens are born with all the eggs they're going to produce in their lifetime anyway. So in my mind, we had an abundance of eggs that we stored up in the summer, and we water glassed them, so we were fine. They're still producing. It's just really not as frequently. So I had made the decision to not put the artificial light in their coop and kind of just let them do their thing. And we supplement, because it can get cold. And again, I'm in Northern California, so I don't have blizzards of snow. I cannot relate if you are under a foot of snow right now where you are. So it's very different, and I wouldn't even know what to do in that case. I'd have to learn. But we give our chickens eggshells back as well, and we also have been putting red chili flakes in their feed.
Really?
Just a natural, yeah. So
they like
kind of they don't have, so they can't taste spice. Okay. I learned this too. So I don't have the same receptors to taste spice, but it's a natural dewormer, and it also helps kind of keep their body temperature a bit warmer, and they love it. And so it's inexpensive, and I just buy it, in bulk, and they're having a great time with it. I have felt though that it has helped keep our egg production, even though it's a little bit less, it's consistent.
That's a great tip. I never knew that when I had my chickens. That's fantastic.
Very cool. Things you learn on the internet. I learned that not too long ago, and I was like, I gotta try this. And I was like, holy crap, it works. So
my favorite thing to give the birds, because they would just have such a party with it, would be watermelon. When you give them watermelon, they're like so happy.
It's so like, funny to watch.
They're like, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, watermelon.
They make noises I've never heard. It's like purring and cooing, and I'm like,
it's almost like they're giggling. Yeah, it's so funny.
They're great.
I love the crickets. If I brought in a bag of crickets, that made them really happy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just shaking the bag, it's like crack. They're like, oh, she's got the goods. And so it's just so funny to watch. They're like, I think somebody had told me it's like chicken TV, and it's very real. Like, if you're ever having a bad day, just go outside, go see your chickens, and feed them something that they really love, and it's just a fun time to watch them.
They're so entertaining, yeah.
They are so entertaining. I never thought that I would really enjoy it as much as I do, and I love those. Again, I love those tiny birds.
Yeah, and people who've never had them don't realize each one has its own little like personality. They're not.
Oh yeah.
people's dumb bird is not an appropriate expression. Like there's a level of intelligence there because they just act different. They'll associate, like they'll have their own little friend cliques, and the roosters will have like a favorite hen. And
that is true. I've heard that too.
Yeah, and they'll like the rooster will go out and like find like if he finds like a really big bug, he'll call over his favorite hen. And
my god!
Yeah,
they are so cool.
Yeah. Wanted to address a couple things here I saw in chat. So digital, good to see you, brother. I don't have chickens now. I had a chicken farm when I was in Kentucky, and sometimes I miss them. But there's things about it I didn't miss too. Like you got to be committed to like getting up early in the morning, and every night you got to make sure they're safe. There's a lot of chore commitment to it, but it's very rewarding. Yeah, a lot of cleaning of poop.
Ton of poop.
Yeah, and yes, sassy gal, they can eat watermelon. They love watermelon. Yeah. So regarding somebody brought up back about strength in martial arts. So one of the first lessons that I learned in martial arts. Now, I am a really strong guy for my age and size. I was always one of the strongest in my class. Strength is a nice advantage. It is not the only aspect of the game. There's other aspects too. There's speed, there's youth, age, there's tolerance for pain, there's flexibility, there's height is a huge advantage when you're in your stand-up fight.
Yeah,
like that's huge. It's hard to overcome. But strength, there might be a natural strength advantage for most men in that situation, but it's really not the only aspect of fighting, and it's a mistake to think that. Also fitness, right? I've seen bodybuilders thinking like they are ready to walk in, all ready to own the dojo. Just because you're very fit and you lift weights doesn't mean you know how to fight,
and they're winded after 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I've seen that too, where and this is something that I struggle with, because it's not like you walk into the studio and the dojo just having the endurance to go multiple 6-minute rounds back to back. You're literally fighting for your life on the mats for 6 minutes straight. And there's times where it's it's a very long time. And I'll tell you, when I first started, I was so winded just from one round. And so you're slowly but surely, like, your endurance is there. Your mind stops racing a little bit more every time, so you can think your way out of situations, because I've seen it before where some people freak out because it's very fight or flight on the mat, especially when you're pinned on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And they'll kick, they'll scream, they'll bite. It's just a natural response. And that doesn't mean that it's anything bad. That's just your natural response to that type of threat. And so learning how to embrace the suck, because you're not going to be good for a very long time. And so just learning how to calm your mind and know how your body can respond and making a habit is like, it's a lot.
Yeah. And Bacon, I don't. Some of the guys that, like, we talk about high school fights and stuff like that. A lot of times people, because they assume that the shorter guy can be taken advantage of, would go after them. And that is a big mistake too. There's so much more to fighting that, like, just fight science, like understanding. You talked about, untraining the fight, flight, freeze. When you start seeing fists coming at your face, like, what's Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face,
Oh, yeah.
And,
yes,
and
that's perfectly said.
Yeah, and understanding this jiu-jitsu is so much science, right? Like understanding leverage and joints and pressure points and the body. Like there's I didn't know that when I started. Like there's A and P, anatomy and physiology, that you have to learn in martial arts. If I show you how to do an arm throw and you don't get it at just the right angle is not going to work, right? And all the jiu-jitsu stuff, you can get somebody in what you think is a chokehold, but if you don't have it right, they can sit there for 30 minutes. Yeah,
it'll be uncomfortable, but they're not going to lose consciousness. And so it's so much, and you're going to have to really drill and train, and eventually you'll be able to feel when it's right. So I agree.
Talk my way out of a situation. I don't want to get into trouble with somebody. I really don't. I would rather go home than have to call a lawyer, and I'd rather go home than have to go to the hospital, So, there, I think that there are situations where That's one of the things I like about martial arts too, like the confidence that you get out of it. There were certainly situations where I could have handled situations, and just knowing that I was like, I don't have to. I'm just gonna look at you. All right, I see you're mad. I'm sorry you're mad. Have a good day.
Yeah. I think that's a big, totally. And that's part of the responsibility of being trained in either martial arts style, art form, or firearms training. You take these journeys on knowing your responsibility is going to be to try to diffuse in any way you can, or completely avoid the situation. You are not out looking for a fight. And if you are, you should probably reevaluate if you should have access to these tools, because it's not what it's about, right? At least for me, and I can only speak for my view on this. Yeah. If you're coming into my home, that's a whole different situation. My family lives here. My kid sleeps here. You don't walk into somebody's house not, expecting to not be fired upon. Sorry. But when you're out and about, understanding where your exits are, understanding where you can probably, like, how you can diffuse a situation by any means necessary, at least from my view. And of course, in the great state of California, you want to try to only have to use your firearm as a form of self-defense if your life is in peril, right, or if your loved one's life is in peril. And that's kind of something that is difficult for some people to really understand when you're in that moment, right? When things are heightened, your blood, like your heart rate is elevated, your mind is racing. Do you have the discipline to say, this is not worth it? I have a clear exit. I'm going to just go on this way and remove myself from the situation. Now, that's different if you're the target, right? You can clearly understand if somebody's coming at you, no matter what's happening. Right. That's a whole different situation. But if you can avoid and diffuse, that is going to be so critical. But it all is built up off of situational awareness. And so training in martial arts and firearms training really just embeds this understanding of how important situational awareness is. So if you are walking around and you're on your phone, you're not paying attention to people's body language, the situation, point areas that are dimly lit, like you look at the world differently. I don't want to say you look at it expecting trouble to jump out at you, but you sure as hell are more aware if you're going to put yourself in a situation like that. And so it all comes down to, are you also training yourself to be situationally aware? Because you can kind of predict from that place if this is going to be a good decision to maybe keep going down this dark alley. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you ever listen to Jack Spirko, the Survival podcast?
I have a few times, so I have to go back. I need to catch up on all of my bookmarked podcasts.
One of his sayings that I love is, you can avoid most trouble in life. Maybe not all, because there's situations outside of our control, but most trouble in life if you don't go to stupid places, do stupid things, and hang out with stupid people. And if you think about it, that's 100% true, right?
Yeah.
Like, most of the time when people, not always, because I know I'm not trying to blame people for getting into bad situations. I know sometimes that I've had that happen too, where, you're just trying to ride home on the subway and something bad goes down. I've actually lived through that a couple times. But most of the time, right? Like, if your friends are out drinking and now they're getting a little bit too drunk, and that one of them's getting obnoxious, they're bumping into people,
yeah.
All right, we've had enough. Let's go home. We'll finish. You know what? You want to party some more? We'll party at home.
Yeah.
And if they refuse to go, then you have an obligation to protect yourself and your family. So you might have to say, you know what? When you're done, please call an Uber. I'll pay for the Uber or whatever. But I can't stay here with you. You're making bad choices, and I'm not going to make them with you.
Yeah, you want to go home, right? In one piece, uninjured, hopefully. And so that. And it does change when you kind of come to that realization. I think for me, it was incredibly more clear when I became a parent, right? And you have so much more at risk if you make dumb decisions like that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Darcy, I love that. And in martial arts, I would make an argument that all martial arts is a bunch of dirty tricks, And I'm the same way at this point. I'm 50-ish now. My days of fighting like a 20-year-old are done. I'm looking to not get into any fights. If I have to, I'm going to assume that my life is in danger, and you're getting sand in your face, and I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight like, what is the expression? There's something about like the bomb is about to drop. There's one train out of there's a train going out of town, and there's one seat left. You got to fight like that, you know?
Yeah, so when I'm on the mats, again, I'm very new into this journey of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I'm a scrappy fighter. That's just how I fight. If I'm going to find an opportunity to, land a choke or submission, could have probably been better with, additional technique, but I'm able to, try to reach for it by any means necessary to protect myself. I'm going to go for it. I have this bad habit of trying to land guillotines, and they don't always work, but then they turn into a nasty head crank. And then sometimes I just make my opponent mad, but at least I tried.
Yeah. Now, one of the knocks that people who don't know what they're talking about will say about jiu-jitsu is, well, that's all fine for a match, but in a real fight, a street fight, I would gouge their eyes or grab their groin or all these, things that are not allowed in a match. So I actually asked that of one of the Gracie guys, and he said, "Oh, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked." So we train our students so that if you want to push the boundaries of a fair fight, they can push those boundaries too. So don't think that like, okay, if somebody gets me into a reverse naked chokehold, I'll gouge their eye. Okay, because you're not going to like what happens after that, because now you've
absolutely not. Yeah, they'll match your energy and your fight, and if you get a really trained fighter, sorry, it's over.
There's the expression right there. Corsair's trainer said it. Fight like the third monkey on the ark, and the rain is falling. That's that.
I love that. I have never heard that. That is incredible. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. So escalation of conflict, right? And that's kind of how when I did get into fights, that's kind of how I did, was like, I was not out to hurt somebody. I was out to show you that I could hurt you, and I don't want to. And if you escalate it, then I'm going to escalate it, right? So the Gracie brothers, when they talk about jiu-jitsu, they said, if you got into a bar fight with one of them, you're a very lucky person, because they're basically just going to hold you to prove to a point that they can. And then it's a submission. And if you want to keep going, you can keep going, but your best bet is probably just say, I'm done. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Imagine if they take you back and they just have you in a choke until you calm down. Now, I mean, what are you going to do? Would you gouge their eyes from behind?
That's going to be a bad idea.
Yeah. I agree. It's crazy.
Yeah. The old thumb in the Wayne says the old thumb in the cornhole always gets there. Yeah, but that's what we're saying. Like, if obviously everybody's going to do what they got to do. Or as Steve was on my channel a couple weeks ago, we were talking about like prison fights and stuff. And people use what you got. People are going to do what they got to do. But when you're fighting somebody who's got more training than you, and they've got decent ethics and morals, they are going to match your energy. So if you want to escalate that, just know that they probably have something for that too,
Yeah. And I will say though, there's a lot of ladies and women out there that want to try to take this up, but maybe they haven't had the chance to start that journey, but they've always intended to. I hope for these women who, if they ever unfortunately find themselves in a situation like that, to just fight like hell, scratch, bite, yell, be as what was the saying? Be as inconvenient of a victim as possible, right? Yeah. Because I think a lot of women in very unfortunate situations, they don't want to make a scene, or they don't want to offend somebody if they're wrong. If this person's actually just maybe trying to hug them, but it's being weird about it. They don't want to offend anybody. I don't give a damn. You fight like hell. You make noise. You be as inconvenient of a target as possible. And so, and I know that is not necessarily something that we get to talk about too often, because we never want to ever envision somebody in that situation. But that's part of the training too. I mean, that you may not get, because you're gonna get training to know how to fight and respond. But if you're in a public place and you can call attention to the situation that's happening, that could increase your odds of surviving. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And if things get kinetic, get some DNA under your fingernails.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right, taught to escalate +1, but understand matching energy. Yep, I agree with all that, Bacon. Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you've done, for everybody in chat or who's watching this, when you've done these trainings, like Des was saying, 6-minute matches, that's a long match. 2 minutes of fighting is like super intense. You're using more energy than you normally use in 3 weeks, and we had to, when we did a lot of sparring days, you'd get a partner that you would spar with for 2 minutes, and then they would blow the whistle, and you had to immediately switch to another partner. Rest. Yeah. And so by the third opponent, like I'm like,
yeah, you want to throw up. You're so exhausted.
And 5 minutes into the fight, and like but it helps you realize, like, end the fight quickly if you can,
Yeah. I think all these people, again, they have a false idea of what a fight is like. Like, unless you're in street fights every weekend or something, but in a fight club, you really don't understand the amount of energy and effort it takes to defend yourself. Because when somebody has an intention of hurting you, they're probably got more energy and amped up before they even get a chance to be within your personal space. So you are already possibly at a disadvantage if you aren't at that level and really working to protect yourself. But it's exhausting. It is exhausting.
Yeah. And, not to scare people off, or because if you're interested in it, definitely take some classes. And when you're starting out, people aren't going to like completely destroy you. If they do, then you're at Cobra Kai and you need to get out of that school.
Yeah, you're in the wrong school, buddy.
You're in the wrong school. That's not martial arts. That's not how it's taught. It's taught with respect. And always the upper level students will teach the newer students with, like at their level. Right. Yeah. So, they're not going to like humiliate you. They're not going to try to hurt you. Do people sometimes accidentally get hurt? Yeah, I did several times, But
I just got my finger out of a splint after like a week. So it's finally off. Yeah. You can get injured, but the training is life skills.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even when you're sparring with headgear, you still feel it. It's not going to be as intense as getting hit without gear, but you still feel it. I had many times where I got rocked on the side of the head and the room spun for a few seconds. And it's enough for you to learn, right? Because if there's no pain, you're not going to learn as good. Pain is a good teacher. And so
pain is information.
Pain is information, right? So after I got rocked a couple times with an overhand right, I went home and I was like, I got to figure this out. So I just kept searching best defenses for an overhead right, and I came up with something. The next time I went in and I fought the guy who threw his overhand right, I did one of those and kind of rolled with it and came back up with an uppercut. So I had that torque with it, and I was like, oh. So
it's all information. If you get rocked, that means you had an area of weakness. It's something for you to work on. Yeah. And it's not to embarrass you. Everybody's there to learn. And I will say, because I used to have a hard time asking people at our studio to let me drill with them, because I felt like I'm keeping them from their roles. I'm probably boring them. They're picking up information with drilling with me. If I'm trying to move and I'm trying to learn how to land it, the right pressure points, the right way to throw my weight, they're learning how to counter that, because they're probably going to be in that situation too. And if there's this willingness to want to help new people who are coming in, and that's just part of the culture. It's the same thing I've experienced with a great environment for firearms culture. They're all here for the same reason. Mm-hmm. They want more people in this field. They want more people to be trained. They want more, you talk to anybody who is an advocate for 2A, they want more people to understand this responsibility and what training and education can do for you and your skill set. The same thing goes with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, and if that's not the case, then you're in the wrong place. So, yeah.
Yep, I agree. Swing a kettlebell for, you'll feel that.
Yes, I've done that. That is hell. It's not fun.
And that's a great point there too, Steve, to train with different types of bodies. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I mostly train with men. They're always much bigger, much stronger, and just wider body than I'm used to. So trying to get my guard around them and trying to frame myself against them is a lot harder because they just have so much more pressure on top of me. There's usually two groups that, aside from the normal people that just join jiu-jitsu to learn self-defense, that join jiu-jitsu also, and it's ex-wrestlers or cops. So, and all of them come with this prior knowledge of just having really great pressure on top of you. And let me tell you, that is the most uncomfortable place to be, because you feel like you are dying, and every breath that leaves you, you cannot breathe in again. It is probably the hardest times that I'm on the mat, because I feel like I'm dying and my brain thinks it too. So I'm immediately like panicky. So it's hard.
Now, do you watch MMA?
Now that I understand it more, I have a renewed love for it. And so I have been watching a lot more of like jiu-jitsu matches that happen locally, MMA. Because before I was just like, I don't know what's happening, so I can't quite follow. But now that I'm invested in this different level, I'm like cheering very loudly in my home for all the different moves that I clearly see what's happening, but also being able to see the different fighting styles is like so incredible, because these athletes are so well versed in different things, whether it's standing game or grappling, or takedowns. It's an incredible art form of what your body can do as a tool and a weapon. So I love it. I'm all about it. It's like blood sport all over.
Yep. BJ Penn, he's retired now, but he used to talk about dirty fighting. When he was on top and putting the pressure on the weight down, he would actually use his gloved hand and cover their mouth too. So
yes, I've heard of that. That's okay. Somebody else brought that up to me, and I was like, man, that's dirty but effective.
That's dirty. Yeah. And now, in a real fight, the person's going to bite your hand, but it was legal in UFC, so he did it, and they would always be like, "Oh man, that's so dirty."
Some of the dirty moves, they're not dirty, but they're legal. If you get somebody's belt off of them, or if they have a long enough belt, you can use it as a lasso choke around their neck.
Oh wow,
that is very difficult. Once that's around your neck, it's hard to get in there to defend yourself. It's not like when somebody's taking your back and you can kind of get into their forearm and brace and frame that way. When somebody has their lapel and like is sled dogging you, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, and I remember there was a couple of gi chokes you could do too, where you're actually using the gi to choke somebody. Yeah.
Yes, I prefer to train with a gi currently. I don't have the confidence yet to train in no gi, even though that is probably going to be more effective just to defend yourself in day-to-day life, because you can't always depend on somebody to have a gi or a collar. I'm working up to it, if you're wondering in the comments. But yeah, your gi is a tool, and you can choke really and really well with a gi if you know what you're doing.
All right, I don't see any other questions about firearms defense or martial arts defense, so let's end with one more topic.
Cool.
Gardening. What do you got going on this year? What are you growing?
Oh my gosh, so we just partnered for a giveaway. Oh, hi, Urban Prepper. Hello. So
good
awesome.
To see you,
hi, surprise mother prepper. That always makes me super laugh. That's so funny.
You were on his channel too, right?
I was, and hopefully I can show you the meme or the picture that he had shared last time. That's kind of that saying of surprise mother prepper. It's so funny. But as far as gardening, I had just given the opportunity to host a giveaway for survival garden seeds. So that's currently happening. If you're on Instagram, please feel free to enter, because our winners are going to get at least 100 different varieties of seeds. But we have a very long growth season up here. I'm in zone 9B, and I'm very fortunate to have such an incredibly long growth season. I'm still learning the ins and outs of it. So by no means am I an expert gardener. It's trial and error. But I'm growing, I like to, in this colder season, all my brassicas, cabbages, I started those, as well as some lettuces. But I love to grow different kinds of peppers and tomatoes, just because when it's hot here, it's hot. It's like really hot for a very long time. I think we average, one month with the average was 102 up to 114
wow.
On the hottest points of the day. Yeah. And so I've had to get creative with shade for my plants because otherwise they're going to sear. And so you're kind of just going with the, the seasons and what to kind of expect in those different seasons. But I'm trying to grow all the things. I'm trying to also, I don't have a huge micro homestead. I only have about 6 beds right now, 6 raised beds. But I'm trying to maximize that space with succession planting, which is going to be my first attempt. And so far it's been a great learning journey, but I'm trying to do all the things, grow all the things.
Awesome. Do you have and by the way, Cliff, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And it's good to see you were back. I check your channel every week, man, to see if you've got a new video. So it was super awesome to see that you were back on YouTube this week.
I was just actually watching Cliff's video about gas masks, just kind of given the timely event of things. He had done one a few years ago, and I was like researching all of it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Cliff's video. And so, yeah, I love going through all of everyone's content on here. So send it to me. If you have some cool stuff, I want to view it.
Absolutely. And I think I missed something last prepper standing. What percentage do you use? Do you mean of the garden? Are you asking Des how much of her garden she uses? If you can clarify that, I'll ask her. So do you have a signature crop, something that like you grow that everybody loves?
Oh, I've had a lot of success with the peppers and the tomatoes last year. To the point where I had to like give them away. I was like, please, if you live near me, I have tomatoes for you. Because I remember, and I have a picture of it. We went to the grocery store and granted it was a little bit different of a variety. One tomato, Sarge, was $4.99, nearly $5 for a single tomato. I thought it was like maybe $5.44 something. It was nearly $5 for a tomato. So I really enjoy growing things that I feel like are going to thrive in my my zone, and just having a plethora of them was super helpful during the spring and summer. So if you're going to ask me what I enjoy growing the most, it's probably peppers and tomatoes, just because yes, they're easy. Okay, it's not a cop out. They're very easy, but they're a lot of fun because there's so many varieties.
Cool. I started growing sweet potatoes again last year. I had skipped it for several years and realized that like I really like sweet potatoes and I need to grow them every year now. And you can grow
them in slips.
Yeah, I start them that way. And then the leaves you can actually eat too. Like you can saute them like spinach. So you're getting a crop, all year long until the end of the year, and then you harvest the sweet potatoes, and then of course they stay in a cool, dark environment for a very long time, like months, and then you can use those next year to start the slips. So it's very sustainable for a prepper or a homesteader. I
love that. I'm going to have to watch what you made on that, because I, first of all, didn't even know you could eat the leaves and saute them and eat them that way. So that is super cool. I'm excited to learn.
Yep. Butter and salt. It tastes like spinach.
Wow, that's crazy. I got to try it. And I did see that the last prepper standing had clarified, and he meant percentage of the garden. So my backyard, I would say I've dedicated a third of my backyard space to my micro homestead. And that it's actually kind of like the side yard that faces the west. And that's one of the things I was determined to do, was like, I just have unused space in this backyard and it's literally not doing anything. And so we had just had the wild idea of trying to make a garden out of it, and it ended up being the perfect space for it. So, and that's part of what I wanted to challenge people who did, either, watch my journey on Instagram, that you don't have to have acreage to produce something to be closer to self-sustaining and self-sufficient. Because if you can grow in tower gardens, container gardens, windowsill herb gardens, you have so many options. But I think people get in this mindset of, oh, I can't do that because I don't have acreage and I don't have all this land. Yeah. You can have a very small footprint of a garden that produces a good amount for your family that you don't have to go to the grocery store for.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree. I know we have some people who watch who are apartment prepping, and if you've got a little balcony, you can do a little bit out there. You can do windowsill stuff. Sprouting requires almost no space at all and no sunlight. It's like the easiest way to grow fresh food. I know Digital, I don't know if Digital's still in the chat, but he was experimenting with mushrooms and doing like the mushroom kits and stuff like that.
I've seen those. That is so cool. I love it.
Yeah, and a lot of herbs will grow indoors.
Even tower gardens.
Yeah.
What do you like to grow besides the sweet potatoes?
Yeah, sweet potatoes, peppers. I grow garlic just about every year, which is also very sustainable. And you know, your garlic from whatever you harvest this year is your next year's starter. So it's, you know, I had a garlic that had been growing like the same genetics for like 20 years. And then finally something weird was starting to happen to it. So I replaced it. So yeah, you get a long time. Like it's a very good crop for preppers and homesteaders. I have a ton of blueberry bushes. I got a lot of lemons this year. I've got the dwarf Meyer lemon trees. I get tons of rosemary and all those herbs like oregano and stuff like that. I just started a little bit of asparagus last year. I'm going to add to that this year. Tomatoes, I have tomatoes I struggle with here. We get a bug called the leaf hopper, and that little son of a gun he's a booger. He's a booger. I can grow.
Sorry.
I can only get like a couple weeks of tomatoes, and then those leaf hoppers come back in, and then I have two choices. I can either nuke it with some heavy chemicals or just let it go. And so I usually just kind of let it go and take what I've gotten, you know?
Yeah. I struggle so hard with growing carrots. Listen, I know carrots are supposed to be this easy thing and super fun. And look, I have failed every single time I've been trying to grow carrots. And so I'm just not, maybe it's my spacing. I don't know.
I think carrots are a little tricky. You got to have super soft soil for them. And, they every time I've done it, they're super small. I get like really tiny ones.
Yeah. It's so deceiving because you have this beautiful stalk for like, and you're pulling it out and you're like, this is going to be a good one. I can feel it. And it's like this big. I get that a lot.
Lee, I do have a couple videos up on garlic, by the way. If you search for Prepping with Sarge, and I think it's called like Garlic the Apocalypse Crop or something like that. You'll find it.
I'm gonna have to watch that. I haven't watched that episode.
Yeah, it's a great crop for preppers because it's so sustainable, and that's what I try to do. Like I'm doing urban homesteading, or I guess suburban homesteading. I don't have a ton of space to work with, so I'm trying to work with crops that are sustainable, crops that like if something happened and I could not replenish, I've still got my seed supply and plus stuff that that I know how to grow slips and things like that to get it started again. So. So how do we, before we start to wind down, and this is last chance, y'all, if you want to get some questions in, go ahead and throw it up now. And mods, if you could throw your links in, please, too, for your channels so that we can try to encourage people to check out the moderators' channels as well. How do they do this, the seed contest that you got going, or is it over? Is it too late?
No, it just started. So it's hosted through Survival Garden Seeds. And so this is now my second grow season where I've really tried to use their seeds exclusively. I've had other brands before and it's been kind of hit or miss. You just follow the link and I'm going to be reposting it every day in my stories for the length of the entry, which is going to close on the 26th. But basically you just put your name and your email address and they will notify you directly if you're one of the 3 lucky winners to get a farmer's seed vault, which is 100 different varieties of herbs, vegetables, and flowers. And so what I really like about using Survival Garden Seeds is their germination rate is above federal standards of germination for seed selling. I was like, is there a standard? It's news to me. Yeah. So they're made and sourced in the United States. They're approved for growing in the United States because sometimes different brands might have strains that were sourced from other areas of the world that may be harmful to different crops that are native to the United States. So that was super nice to kind of learn that fact. But I have just had so much like success with these seeds because their germination rate is really, really good. And I have tried to set myself up for failure by putting them in like soil that wasn't ideal for like little seeds, right? And I was like, oh, this will never work. And I turn around and they're starting to sprout. I'm like, God damn, these are good seeds. So I would encourage you to take a hand at winning the giveaway. So just take a look, but it's no purchase is necessary to enter the drawing.
All right. Well, you all heard that. Now, I personally am going to disclude myself from that only because I work with another seed company. But I absolutely encourage all of my audience, if you're watching this, definitely go check that out, especially if you're trying to build your seed vault as a prepper, as a survivalist. Absolutely, it's an essential prep. If you can get it for free, why pass that up? So go check out that contest for sure.
Love it. Right. And when we're offline, I'd love to learn about the seed company that you're working with. Tell me all the things you love about it.
Okay, sounds good. Ready for the rapid fire, the lightning round?
Yes. All right, I'm ready. Let's go. Right.
Favorite book for your prepper library?
Medical Handbook.
Okay, is that the one by Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy?
Yes, okay, it is.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It is because I've learned so much already. It's crazy.
Yeah. And they have a channel too, by the way. They're on YouTube as well. And
I gotta check it out.
Mm-hmm. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes. Is this a question? I love pineapple on pizza.
You do? I could give or take it. I won't push it away, but it's not my first choice. Favorite brand of flashlight?
Streamlight.
Streamlight, good choice. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
All right, good choice.
Are we still friends? Okay, I was gonna ask.
Well, I like both, but I'm much more of a Star Wars nerd than I am a Star Trek nerd.
Got it.
Favorite knife?
Ooh, that would have to be my Spyderco Para 3. It's actually this one, because I keep on me. It's my EDC, and I like it because I like it because it is so lightweight. And I live in leggings. And so being able to have it on me and not have it weigh the material down is so important to me. So I love it.
Good job. Did somebody tell you I was going to pocket check you?
No, I did not. Oh, I was ready.
All right. And favorite food for your prepper pantry? Now, this can be like freeze-dried or dehydrated or...
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Lightning. It's going to be Spam.
Spam.
Yeah, if Cliff is still on here, he's probably heard me say this too. Listen, okay, I'm Filipino. Okay, we have many dishes that use Spam. Okay, and it's great. It has a long shelf life. It's good and can be used in a number of ways. So Spam.
All right. So out of the can, what's the best way to eat Spam then?
I really love Spam musubis. So it's a tie for me. So Spam musubi is where you have rice, you have a slice of Spam that's been probably fried, and then you wrap it up in seaweed. So it's kind of like Spam sushi, but it's a Spam musubi. I love Spam musubi, but I also like a good Spam fried rice. That's an easy, really good prepper meal too.
Y'all, if you stayed for this whole video, you got all kinds of cool new information. Like, I'm learning so much stuff from this stream. Spam
and eggs. I know Sassy get Spam musubi, Spam with eggs. Oh my gosh, all the Spam dishes.
Okay. Bacon wants to know if you've ever trained with Eskrima sticks. Have you used those?
So growing up, my brother trained in Eskrima, and I think is an incredible martial arts art form. The problem is we can't always source a lot of schools that specialize in Eskrima. And so I'm very proud of my Filipino heritage. I am of mixed background. I just am sad that we don't have enough studios that really focus on Eskrima, but it is super powerful. And it's very fast. It's very powerful. It kind of builds up that same stamina and strength. So I'd invite you to take a look. If you don't know what Eskrima is, you can just do a quick internet search. It'll come right up. But it's not a common one that we see, unfortunately.
Yeah. The katas are really fun to do. The Eskrima katas. I was messing around with that a little bit when I was doing my training, and they're just super fun to work with. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of takes a learning curve. I still never kind of got it down, but once you get it, you're like, oh, this is great.
Mm-hmm. Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles, timeless. Okay. Come
on. Favorite survival movie?
Oh, now you're asking me the hard questions. Darn. There's so many. Book of Eli was one that I really loved. And it's very post-apocalyptic, but I have so many. I'd have to go back and give you a whole list because I can't really narrow it down. But that was one that I watched again, not too long ago.
Okay, Book of Eli is a good one. Country music or disco?
Okay, listen, I'm not a huge country fan, but the storytelling in country music is like, there's no comparison. So I enjoy that piece of it.
All right, I'm gonna narrow
disco. I didn't have enough of it.
All right, country music or pop?
Country music. I'm not a huge pop fan.
Okay, country music or hip hop?
Listen, I grew up in the 90s, so hip hop's gonna win this one. Okay. So yeah, hip hop.
All right, hip hop or rock?
Oh, dang, I do like rock, but it's still gonna be hip hop.
Hip hop. Okay, last one. Hip hop or metal?
Hip hop.
All right.
Maybe I didn't have enough exposure to metal. So if you're in the comments and you've stayed, send me what I should listen to.
Yeah. Nope, you're fine. I listen to everything. Classic rock is my absolute favorite, but I listen to everything. So, hip hop,
awesome.
Country, everything. Yep. I even listen to like some of that progressive trance stuff, like that they do in the clubs, like a.
Yeah. Do you listen to lo-fi?
I do. Yep. Yep. That's really like when you're just trying to chill out and study and stuff. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have found that if I'm like editing or writing or trying to build a website, because that's incredibly difficult, lo-fi in the background makes me just that much more focused. It's like Ritalin without having to take Ritalin or something like that.
Yeah, it does. It helps to kind of block out all the other stuff so that you can focus. I agree. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's start to wind this one down. So again, where can people find you? Most of your stuff's on
Instagram. So most of my stuff lives on Instagram.
Right. You have a channel here, which you're probably at some point you're going to play with a little bit more.
Yes, I do. I have full intentions to revive my YouTube channel. I'd love to hear from all of you. So if you want to message me what content you'd like to see on my YouTube, because Instagram is very short form video. And so you don't get a chance to really go into depth with a lot of topics of discussion. So if you have anything you would love to see or would suggest, please send me a message because I am all ears and I want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. And any websites or anything like that or not yet?
It's in the works. I'm going to use it as a central hub, to put together everything I've been working on and offer different items as well. So it's coming soon.
Well, you have been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate you coming on the channel. You are welcome back here anytime you want. And I don't know if you'd have any interest in it. Periodically, we'll put together like a panel where we'll get like 5 or 6 of us. And those are fun. Cool. Well, we will bring you back then. Thank you so much to the mods as well. You all do a fantastic job. And please, if you're watching this on replay, please put on the chat. You're missing so much if you're not watching the chat. Check out there's so many great prepping channels in there. We've got Sassy Gal Prepping. I know I saw Prepping by Faith on there before. We got Coldware Prepper. Bacon does a stream on Friday nights where he just kind of hams it up with his friends. So if you're looking to just relax and have a good time, definitely check that one out. I know I saw Stuart's Prepping in here. There's so many good channels on here, y'all. Who's your prepping nurse? She just did a whole series on sprouting. Check that out. So please.
Yeah.
Check all fantastic channels. Check them all out. And if I didn't mention you, I apologize. I love the community and I support as many people as I can. So Thank you, mods, and thank you, chat. And thank you, Des. Come back soon. We really appreciate you.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. I will end with a quick little thing here. Hopefully, if you are not in one of the areas that's dealing with the kind of tragedy like East Palestine, Ohio, if you can, just take this weekend to be grateful, because look how quick life can change. And if you pray, please pray for the people in East Palestine and all of the people around there that have been affected by this train derailment chemical spill. It's going to unfortunately, the effects are going to spread out to surrounding communities as well. If there's opportunities to help, please consider doing that. But don't overextend yourself. Do what you can and what your heart drives you to. But most of all, be grateful, because life can change in a New York second. And just remember that. All right. This is Prepping with Sarge and Des, Mother Prepper. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.